right, so here goes anything. Destiny's IRL speech to left and right-wing high school student.
Okay, too much. Okay. For those that don't know me, basically, I'm kind of known online as the YouTube debater guy. Some people call me center left, some people call me far left, some people call me a Nazi. It really just depends on where you know my content from. If you've seen me recently, it's probably because of Red.
All right, let me check to make sure the stream's going. Cool. Stream seems healthy.
Pill stuff on TikTok, I imagine. I got into streaming about like 12 or 13 years ago. Initially, I played video games. I was a semi-professional StarCraft player. I don't know if anybody in here even knows what that game is. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, it's not Fortnite, not Roblox, but after that, around 2016, I started to get involved in political stuff, which was true apparently for the entire country, because everybody started to have political opinions about everything once Trump showed up, and I was one of those people. When I first jumped into kind of the online political world, because of my background as being a very edgy internet person, I was kind of the only person who was politically center to far left, but also willing to fight very aggressively, very dirty with people on the right, and that's kind of how I cut my teeth in early online political content, was being like the guy on the left that was also really aggressive and edgy. As I've done political content online over the past 7 years, I've kind of learned to change the way that I communicate with people, because ultimately my goal is usually to convince as many people as possible that the ideas I believe are right and good, and I want you to believe in those ideas too. So the kind of the morphology of my content changed from trying to belittle, berate, and attack my opponents to understanding like, where are you at? You know, how can I help you understand what I'm understanding? Even if I can't fully convince you on a particular thing, how do I get you to come like 5 or 10% over to my side? I think last time I was here, I basically talked about how kind of like this, there's like this partisan like divide in this country that is, it extends past political opinion, and it is like leaking into like areas of how we even perceive like what reality is, right? And I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I don't know how many people you guys talk to that are politically different, but like conservatives and liberals in the United States seem to inhabit completely different realities, right? On one side, you've got people that believe that, you know, like the vaccine is 100% effective, stops all transmission. On the other side, you've got people that think the vaccine is Bill Gates trying to turn you into a magnet. It's just, yeah, the epistemic realities that both sides inhabit are dramatically changing. So a lot of my political mission now is basically trying to figure out like how can I get people to not necessarily agree with each other, but at least be able to have a conversation with each other where we're kind of dealing with the same set of facts. As I've gone through my life, hopefully you guys feel that like 4 or 5 years ago you were crazy. What is the average age in here? Like 15, 16, 17? Right? 17, okay. So even 3 years ago probably feels like a lifetime. The difference between like 8th grade and junior year of high school can feel like many years. And it is in terms of development. I've felt similarly. Every 4 or 5 years I look back. There's a lot of political opinions I've changed my mind on. There's a lot of communication styles that I've changed in terms of how I relate to people. But there are like a few things that, broadly speaking, in the past like decade and a half of communicating with people, there's like 5 things that I've found that these are true, and they've always been true, and I think they'll always be true. And if I could communicate like anything to any person that wants to be more politically active, I would hope that I could communicate these 5 points. I consider these to be, I'll fight to the death on any of these. Maybe we'll fight when we do the Q&A after, but yeah, we'll see. So number one, the first thing is, when you are approaching any political, ethical question, you have to start from the foundation that your opponent is trying to do something that they think is a moral good. I notice that for a lot of political conversations, they basically start and stop with people assuming that the other side is up to no good. So for instance, a conservative will start a conversation about vaccines saying that, you're just trying to subdue the population for control of blah, 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 blah. And when you're starting from that point, or for like trans children, for instance, you just want to trans all of our children. children so that we don't have access to our kids anymore. You guys are all groomers. When you start from that position, assuming the other side isn't evil, which like 99% of people are not evil, you've already like lost the ability to communicate any sort of factual truth or any sort of like moral or ethical statement, because the other person's not even going to hear what you have to say, right? If you're going to assume right off the bat that I'm an evil person, well then, I mean, this conversation is lost. Something that's very, very, very difficult for people to understand is two people can have fundamentally different views. I shouldn't say fundamental. Two people can have radically different views of how to approach a problem, and they might still both be thinking that they're coming at it from the correct perspective, right? A person on the left that's advocating for larger government isn't doing it because they want to control your life. They're doing it because they feel like there are certain problems you can pawn off to the government that the government can handle more effectively than the private sector. Like say like single-payer healthcare or something, as opposed to the kind of open market we have right now. And then same thing with conservatives, right? A conservative that's advocating for smaller government isn't doing so because he wants homeless people to suffer and die in the street. He's probably doing it because he genuinely feels like communities should take care of themselves, that the government shouldn't be involved, and that individuals can allocate their money more responsibly and ethically than the government can. When you start from that foundation, at the very least, even if you don't agree with each other, you can have an honest conversation about the facts. The second part, I thank God I figured this out really early on, and some of you are probably starting to figure this out. It is incredibly lucrative when you're growing up that when there's somebody that you don't like, or there's a certain idea that you hate, instead of actually analyzing the idea and figuring out what you don't like about it and then moving forward from there, the desire, the natural inclination is to be the exact opposite of whatever that idea is, right? My mom and dad said that I can't go out drinking, I'm gonna stay out on Sunday, I'm gonna get a fake ID and I'm gonna drink as much as I want. Mom and dad said I can't smoke cigarettes, well, I'm gonna smoke weed, right? You do the exact opposite of whatever system or person or ideology there is, and then you just instantly assume that that's like the right way to go. There are so many people that I've talked to where I feel like I can summarize or define their entire political and ethical existence basically in opposition to whatever people they don't like. And it's really funny because you can watch people in the middle of arguments start to argue against things that like, I don't even know if you really believe this, or you're just so caught up in the moment. They're like, I mean, even I do this sometimes. I'll be arguing with somebody, and I feel like they could say like 1 + 1 = 2, and I would be like, not always, right? Like you get so like debate brained, you get so contrarian, you just want to like push back against every possible thing that you see as bad.
Isn't he a cuck? I mean, no, he's in an open relationship.
And eventually what happens is you go through life, one, you're absolutely miserable because your whole political outlook is like, it's like based on like hatred of the other side. And then two, you also tend to have very shallow political beliefs, right? Well, oh, is this good or bad? I don't know, the other guys like it, so I'm gonna do the exact opposite and I think it's good. And then you never really develop like a deeper understanding of why you believe the things you do. Third point is...
True! I actually just talked about that last night. So often, people are just interested in defending whatever their side's view is. And especially since most people don't have very strong opinions on most issues. They just have like 1 or 2 things that they really care about, and then everything else, like whatever, other people who are like me think this way, so therefore I should think this way too. And they don't actually analyze the issues from a fundamentally nuanced perspective and approach it with an open mind and be like, okay, let's consider that idea for a moment. They really aren't interested in that most of the time. And that's, I think, disappointing. And you can tell when people are just sort of like giving you the NPC talking points instead of truly engaging in a good faith discussion. So this is some pretty good advice right here. That's the same thing, the chat says. No. I mean, clearly, I think Destiny is getting way, way, way more sex than probably the vast majority of people watching this right now, or the vast majority of people in the United States. You know, cuck is a fetish where you enjoy watching your partner get fucked by other people. It doesn't mean that you and your partner both agree that sometimes you'll see other people. Also, given that I'm watching, I'm probably going to do terribly in this in this game.
Brains are very, very, very special. There's 2 really important things to understand. One is your brain is not a reliable observer or narrator. It has so many different biases that affect the types of memories you form, the things you remember when you're doing research, the things you look for when you're doing research, the fundamental motivational attribution that you give to other people for their actions. If you've ever taken like a Psych 101 class, or for you guys, I guess like an AP, or I don't know if there's IB Psych. Nobody likes IB kids. If you've ever like taken a class like this, the first thing you learn is that your brain is so unreliable in so many different ways. But there's a really cool thing in that our brain can correct for it. If anybody wants to get involved, whether you're left, right, progressive, socialist, Nazi, whatever, if you want to get involved in politics, I think it's really, really, really important that the first thing you have to learn is how are the ways that my brain can trick me when I'm doing research, right? If I want to see, are private schools better than public schools, it's probably not a good idea to go onto Google and type private schools beat public schools when, right? If you can't even type like a neutral question
True.
for a search engine, right? There's already so many other things that you're going to have trouble with down the line. So yeah, your brains understand all the biases and the limitations that your brain has, and be aware for it so that you can correct.
I don't think men are really open to that. They just agree to it because they feel they'll lose their girl if they don't agree. That's why it's basically cucking in the end. No, I don't think so. I think that it's a lifestyle that probably doesn't work for the vast majority of people. But Destiny himself has talked about it, where he says that, he cheated on his last girlfriend, his last long-term relationship, and he realized that he would probably end up cheating again because that's just who he is. And so it would be better for both him and his partner moving forward if they had an open relationship. So if he had the desire to sleep with other people, which he clearly does on a regular basis, then he could act on that freely. Which I think is perfectly fine, especially since his partner, Melina, she agreed to it.
For it, when you're doing whatever research you're doing. Sometimes when I do research on stream, I actually have, if I'm going to watch a video and I'm going to go over it, before I start the video even, I'll kind of like write down for my audience, this is a particular speaker, this is Joe Rogan, I don't like what he has to say for a lot of things, and I'll write that bias right at the top, because what happens is, as I'm going through the video, it might be the fact that he says something, so it's good for me to be aware of that so that I don't end up like, getting caught in one of the points I said earlier where I'm fighting against stuff that's probably true, but I'm like so politically motivated to take the other side that I just lose track of that. Number 4, people's feelings can be irrational sometimes, but they're never random, right? Even trauma responses are based on a particular stimuli that somebody was exposed to earlier in life. Sometimes people can have beliefs that don't necessarily track onto data, but I think we confuse sometimes people's beliefs not tracking the data to their beliefs being random or racist or hateful or whatever. But the reality is at some point, somebody was probably exposed to some type of content, some type of situation, something their parents said, something.
The search engines are biased too, though. If you type neutral questions like that into Google, you'll get fed approved globalist answers pushed. I don't know what a globalist answer is. Obviously, I think the algorithms do have biases, and the companies and sometimes the people who work for them have biases too. But I think generally you can find on Google search results that are accurate if you look. And now, unfortunately, sometimes that requires changing the search results a few times, trying different phrasings, but I think most of the time it's generally pretty okay. Like, unless you have like some specific examples, we can try it out and test it. Same with AI. In fact, for AI, I think you need to write almost the opposite. Like public schools beat private. Yeah, I think the AI is different. I think the AI is way more biased than I think Google is, or I don't know about Bing, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, but yeah, AI is the ChatGPT. I've seen an incredible bias there, and that's unfortunate. And I don't really know. It's a private company. They can, if they're going to create these AI platforms, they're not really regulated. So I'm not sure what really can be done. I'm gonna go Reavers now, or actually get some Dragoons, tanks, and then Reavers. Reavers are sort of the last defense in this one. But I let him survive. I could have defeated him earlier.
A sibling said that made them think the way that they do. It's important to recognize that because, again, going back to the point number 1, there are very few evil people. If you understand why somebody believes a particular thing, then hopefully if you're trying to convince them otherwise, you can understand how to argue them out of it. If you've got a person that you're arguing with who's convinced that 3 of their family members, died to, like a COVID-19 vaccination, you're probably not going to have a very good time trying to convince them that they're safe by showing them study after study after study, because they've got a lived experience it's going to be so hard to argue against that no amount of research is going to get them to a different point of view. There's a famous
AI is powering most of the search engines now, by the way. Yeah, when I say AI, I'm talking about like ChatGPT in particular. ChatGPT, I think, does have a lot of a left-wing bias. I don't know about like the AI algorithm that Google uses.
Famous quote where it's like you can't reason somebody out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into. So be aware of that when you're arguing with people. People don't believe things for random reasons, even if they seem irrational. There's always a reason why they believe the thing they do. The last point is the most important point, okay? You cannot, nobody in here, unless somebody becomes president or something, okay? You cannot change the world, but you can absolutely change your world. There's a lot of people that get super miserable following politics. If you are walking around all day and you're like, oh my God, like the floods in Pakistan, and I just saw Ukrainian soldiers get killed, and I'm like the LGBT laws and blah, 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 blah. If you're stressing about every single problem, like all over the world, one, no offense, but you probably can't do much to change those things right now, especially being children, or young adults, I think is the preferred term. But you can't do anything right now to affect that. And two, you're going to have like a demonstrably negative impact on your own life, which is going to feed back into number one, which will hurt your future ability to help or alleviate or fix any of those problems in the future. The most that we can do is for ourselves and the people around us.
I saw Destiny on a podcast about relationships and lost all respect for him. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, personally, I don't think that other people's relationships are really any of my business. I don't think it's a huge deal. Um, even even some fairly like obscure like relationships, like having an open relationship, polyamory, whatever. Like I think that's totally cool. Like whatever, you do you. It's a free country.
I think this is one point that conservatives tend to be more correct on. It's very, very important for you to establish like the locus of control has to be with you, and you can't externalize that, because if you are constantly worried about the world's problems and you're constantly obsessed with like systemic issues and structural issues and societal issues and sociopolitical issues, you're going to feel like you're completely out of control in your life, and every day is just going to be miserable. As humans, I don't think we should ever be pursuing knowledge that just hurts us and doesn't give us like better tools to not only deal effectively with the world, but also live like better lives ourselves. So yeah, those are like, I think these are 5 things that I don't think are ever going to change for me. If I can impart any of these, or if you want to fight over any of these, we can do that. But to summarize again, 1, 99% of people are fundamentally good people. They're just trying to do what they think is right. They just want to have families, work jobs, party on the weekends. Number 2, do not define your whole ideology by your opposition. Don't be a reactionary. Number 3, brains might be biased by nature, but you can also detect bias.
Yeah, this is a huge one here. Don't define your entire life and political existence based on who you're opposing. Like this is something I see too often on the left and the right, and I think I've fallen victim to it too. Back when I was like an anti-SJW YouTuber, like okay, what am I doing here? I am an anti-SJW. Like, what do I actually stand for though? All I'm doing is standing in opposition to views that other people hold. And like I disagree with like a lot of like the SJW woke stuff, like whatever. Like I criticize that all the time. But also, like that's not like all I am. Like oh, I disagree with this stuff. No, I'm actually like trying to put like a positive forward message out there in the world, and I'm trying to hear people out and like have nuanced conversations. Like I had a conversation with Hannah a few days ago, and we probably disagree on like quite a few different things. And we disagreed about Gamergate. We disagreed about the trans sports stuff. And like we were able to have a civil conversation, even though we very clearly disagreed with each other on several key aspects. It's not much about his relationship as it does expose his weak mind and lack of masculinity. I mean, like, I don't know. He can take on pretty much like anybody in a debate and pretty much destroy them, like the vast majority of people. And he's a phenomenal debater. At least in my opinion. I guess if you disagree with him, you might see that a little bit differently. Yeah, but yeah, what is masculinity, right? How would you define that? So left-wing people like him get to talk to children. That's a bias you'll see. I mean, he's talking to high school students right now, but that's perfectly. I don't see an issue with that. I mean, high schools invite people to speak at them all the time. I had plenty of speakers at my high school.
by nurture. You can
Also, I do have
learn
missed
to understand how your brains can trick you so that it can't trick you, at least as well. 4 is that people's feelings might be irrational sometimes, but they are never random. They're always believing things for a certain reason. It's your job to find that out if you're trying to convince them otherwise. And 5, you cannot change the world, but you can change your world. Make sure that you are doing everything you can to maximize for your happiness. A happy foundation of a person is going to be better able to deal with and change and impart their values on the world than somebody that's like miserable because they're caught up with all the world's problems. But yeah. All right, you want to do a Q&A or what? We'll start up here. Go. The question is, how do you keep a relationship with an invisible audience so that they come back and they keep listening to what you have to say? Like at the heart, you're basically asking me, like, how do you be a successful, like, entertainer slash personality slash influencer or whatever you guys call it these days that people want to relate to? Honest to God, I could give like a whole 4 or 5 hour talk on that. There's a lot of different strategies to maximize, I guess, like viewer engagement and retention and why people, you know, want to watch you in the first place. I think on the broadest level, here's the piece of advice that I would give that I think applies to if you want to be like an entrepreneur or a business owner or something as well. If somebody comes up to me and they go, hey, I really want to be a content creator, or if somebody comes up to me with an investment idea, hey, I really want to start this business. The first question I will always ask immediately is, why should somebody watch you or buy your product or use your service over anybody else or anything else? You need to have like an immediate, like, oh, they would watch me because of this, or they would use my service because this is better than the competitors, it does this better, it's cheaper, it's whatever. If you don't have an immediate answer to that, you need to take a step back. You need to think, like, what is the thing that is kind of like drawing people to me? Not everybody has like naturally the, I don't know if you'd say the charisma, the extroversion, whatever you need to like be an entertaining person. Some people can work on it. For some people, that's just not their strength. So there's better ways to find other things. But yeah, I would say that the most important thing is to probably recognize, like, what is the individual thing that you bring that other people are going to be interested in. For me personally, I think it's my willingness to engage with a wide variety of people, and I think it's because I'm willing to extend empathy to almost anybody, which is really, really, really rare in online, especially political spaces, because people are so judgmental. I can listen to a guy tell me a lot of crazy stuff, I can engage with him with where he's at, and then I can have a good conversation, and I think that's probably the biggest strength that I personally have as a creator. But other people are really famous doing what I did 6 or 7 years ago, where they're just like super combative. They attack everybody, they're ruthless, they're mean, they, you know, deride their political opposition. Yeah, but it really just depends. Whatever you're going to do, like, just be entertaining, be the best at it. Make sure that people have a specific reason to watch you for that particular thing, or to buy your product or your service or whatever, versus any competitor.
True. That's something I've really been trying to think about more, about what it is that I bring to the table operating here, and as a political content creator, I guess a gaming content creator too, to a lesser extent. And I think it's a few different things. Mostly it's engaging in high level, sophisticated conversations with other people in good faith, which I think is very rare, as well as I think I'm relatively smart and can ask good questions in interviews, and I think I'm also kind and, well, kind to an extent, polite with other people. So I'm not going to be like a huge asshole just because someone disagrees with me. So I'll have people on who are right wing, left wing, far right, far left, whatever, and I'll not be like just sitting there insulting them the whole time, trying to one up them, just so I can get like viral clips or whatever. So I think that I can have good conversations, and that's mostly, I think mostly it. I mean, like, obviously there's other things too, like I can cover certain topics that other people don't really talk about, like the cetacean stuff I want to talk about. I tried to set up a debate with someone from National Review and the Discovery Institute about whether or not humans are exceptional in terms of being the only intelligent species on Earth. I was going to take a more nuanced, like, not hardline position of, well, I think we can't say that for certain yet if humans are the only intelligent species on this planet. because I do think that there's compelling reasons to think that cetaceans, either in part or in whole, may possess some degree of human-like intelligence. In fact, there's reason to think that they might have some form of language, and that they have culture and fads, and they pass things on through socialization. Um, so I think it's an open question whether or not we're the only intelligent species on this planet. But I'm not gonna like hard line say like, oh yeah, of course we aren't. No, I don't know. I don't think we know yet. I don't think there's enough research, but there is some research indicating that orcas, in particular, for instance, may possess human-like intelligence, and that's interesting. That's a fascinating topic. I wanted to debate that with someone from National Review, but Wesley Smith, I believe, but he didn't get back to me, at least not yet.
Sorry, that's a really broad answer, but it's a very like, yeah, there's a, yeah, cool. Okay, what's up?
Oh, I'm gonna drop him 100%. He's not putting in any effort to fix this so far, it doesn't seem.
So the question is, if you have if you've got a family, most people seem to inherit their political, really all their views from their family, and how do you break away from that? That's a really good question. So here's something. This is something that is very hard to think about, but if you truly want to evolve individually on some political sense or some ethical sense, there has to be a deliberate effort put in to do that. When I say deliberate effort, what I mean is, if I'm arguing with somebody, vaccines are on my mind right now because of the RFK stuff and the Joe Rogan stuff, so I'm sorry, those are all the examples I keep going to. Usually when I argue with somebody and I'll go, I don't think vaccines have caused 1 million people to die, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I disagree with you because I've seen a ton of research. 99% of the time when that person says they've done a bunch of research, what they mean is they've watched a podcast where somebody else has mentioned the title of a Twitter thread that probably misquotes the study, and that's what they're talking about, right? But the issue is that when you are, oh shit, wait, what was your original question? Oh, no, I'm sorry. It had to do with analyzing. Sorry. Jeez, I'm thinking of so much RFK stuff right now. The issue that a lot of people have is there's like two broad ways that you can like consume information. One is you can kind of do it passively. Basically, you sit in front of a screen. You've got a social media feed. You're seeing titles. You're seeing friends, whatever. You can do it passively through your parents. You could do it passively through a religious institution. You could do it passively through college. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm on YouTube. Record an argument and like listen back to it. You know, what did I say here that didn't connect well? Is there a point that I feel like I lost on? Do I need to work on my research? Do I need to work on my presence? Do I need to work on my intonation? Do I need like different vocabulary? You have to be willing to sink some deliberate effort into analyzing the arguments you've.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the things that I've tried to work on is presence. I know I've noticed that going back and watching a lot of the old Gamergate videos that I used to do, and well, not the videos, but the live streams, is that I would be on these things for 7 hours, and maybe the entire time I spoke for 30 minutes, because it would be like a panel of like 6 or 7 people, and I'd always like be sitting there waiting my turn, because like I didn't want to be rude. Um, now, I mean, I feel like I might still be like that. I don't know. We'll have to see. I've not really done any like the panel conversations, but I feel like I'd be a lot more aggressive and have a lot more of a presence. Like not a rude aggressive, but aggressive in regards to making my point and not being afraid to speak up, because like, oh, I don't want to come across as rude. Other people are talking, I want to cut them off. Like I feel like I'd be a lot more have a lot more presence on a panel discussion now than I did 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So he's pro-vaccine, open relationship, pro-public schools, anti-free speech, soft on pedophiles, etc., etc. Some centrist. Well, he's pro-vaccine in an open relationship, and I guess he's pro-public school. I don't really know what his public school position is, but he's pro-free speech. I'm not sure where you're getting this. Like, there's nobody online who's willing to talk to more people than Destiny. I don't think. I mean, he's literally having conversations with far right, like literal white nationalists and white supremacists, people on the far left as well. He'll debate pretty much anybody, and he's definitely not pro pedophile. That's I'm not, I gotta call that out because that's fake news. He's not pro pedophile. If you watch, he did a debate with somebody, and like I don't really want to talk about this. It's gonna get immediately demonetized and taken out of context. But he was saying something along the lines of, and I remember because I saw the full clip. You can watch the full clip online. But he was saying something along the lines, more or less, of if studies came out and showed that child porn reduced could be used as part of a therapy to reduce treatment option to reduce the desire of a pedophile to act on it, then he would be open, at least theoretically, to that being legal in certain regulated medical circumstances as part of a therapy. Because he was asked about that question directly, and he was responding to it. He didn't like just bring it up for like no reason. What do I think of Gamergate now? Um, I mean, I pretty much agree with like most of what I still believe most of the same things. I believe in regards to Gamergate. I think that obviously the games press had a lot of corruption. I think that there was a push by the social justice community, whatever you want to call them, to censor video games, or to censor certain video games to basically kill, not through the government, but through social pressure and through online media campaigns, through social media, to try and pressure developers into not releasing certain types of games anymore if they were quote unquote offensive. So I'm very much still very pro free speech, pro creative freedom, artistic freedom, that developers should be able to make the games that they want to make. So I still hold that view. I think that there were some crazy people involved with Gamergate. Obviously, I mean, we saw we saw Lane Davis, Seattle for Truth, who I talked with a few times back in the day. Like we weren't like friends or anything, but I had a couple conversations with him on stream, and he ended up becoming a murderer allegedly. I don't know if he ever was convicted of that, but yeah, like there was some obviously some wild shit. But you have tens of thousands of people involved in a community. You're gonna have some bad apples. That's always going to be the case, and I don't think you can judge tens of thousands of people based on what a few hundred bad apples maybe out of tens of thousands, if even that, if even a few hundred. If you look at like the actual statistics on who was a part of like the GG revolt, which is like the worst aspect of Gamergate, like the true bad apples. Not everyone in GG revolt necessarily was, but that's where you saw like the really crazy shit go on. Um, that was like 80 people tops. Like their month, and that's by 80 people. I mean there were 80 people who posted on their forum in a span of a month. So 80 individual IP addresses posting on the forum. So some of those people could have even been people who disagreed with the GG Revolt people. I know I posted there a few times, disagreeing with them actually. So not everyone who posted there necessarily supported GG Revolt or its worst aspects. Now, how do I get an SCV? No, not this SCV. An SCV for mining. Oh, I'm dead. I am so fucking dead. I am so fucking dead. He uses videos to take down to silence people who criticize them. I mean, what does that even mean? He makes videos criticizing people. So does every other political content creator out there. Yeah, I'm dead pretty much. Um, I've made videos criticizing Anita Sarkeesian before. Does that mean I'm trying to silence her? Boom. Well, third place. That's not too bad, I guess. All right. We saw the Destiny video, his speech. I thought it was pretty good. Nothing really stood out as something to critique.